Hey everybody, it's GauntletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be playing another Aetherdrift sealed event. This is more practice for the upcoming Arena Direct next weekend. That is going to be an Aetherdrift sealed event where you can win physical booster boxes shipped directly to you. So I want to get a little bit of practice in with the sealed format before we hop straight into the drafts, but this will probably be the last sealed event until next weekend just because we'll be playing tons of sealed during that Arena Direct. So one more quick little sealed event here. See if we can't get a decent grasp on the differences between sealed and draft at the very least in this format. So for our rares, we have 8 rares, which is pretty decent. Certainly a lot better than the minimum. You can open only 6 rares. It's pretty rare that that would happen with play boosters, but I have seen it before, so we're happy to open a little bit more than the bare minimum here. However, I don't think we have a ton of super powerful rares. Well, I mean, there's probably like 3 duds, right? Count on Luck. These extra combat abilities like Full Throttle rarely play well, and then a dual land is never what you want in the rare slot because you can get pretty comparable ones in terms of a limited power level just at common, so that's always a bummer. So I think these 3 rares are likely unplayable, but the other might actually be pretty good. We've got a lot of cards I haven't seen before, like this Demonic Junker, affinity for artifacts, so maybe it has a decent mana cost. 7 is a lot up front, but depending on how many artifacts we have and whatever color pair we play it in, we could cast it for cheap. We get to destroy up to 1 creature each player controls, and then if a creature you control was destroyed this way, put 2+1/+1 counters in the vehicles. This is probably just the big vehicle that blows up one of our opponent's threats. That's a decent 2-for-1. That seems pretty great if we want to go towards black, which we likely do, because we also have the Speed Demon, 5 mana, 5/5 Flample. It's got flying and trample. It's got that new Start Your Engines mechanic, so we can keep ticking up our speed as our opponent is losing life. And we get to draw cards and lose life equal to the number of speed we have during each end step. Obviously, the losing life part isn't really a benefit, but that is a fine payment for drawing a ton of potential cards. I feel like that seems really powerful as well. And seeing that we have the Junker too means that black's likely a good spot to be. Thunderous Velocipede I've also never seen. 3 mana for a 5/5 trample. It crews for 3, which is a pretty hefty crew cost. But in addition, each other vehicle and creature you control enters with an additional +1/+1 counter if its mana value is 4 or less, and otherwise it enters with an additional 3. Alright, that's probably pretty dang good then. We've seen kind of both halves of this card be pretty mediocre, you know, like a 3 mana 5/5 crew 3 vehicle. It's not quite good enough. A 3 mana enchantment that just puts +1/+1 counters on the rest of the creatures you play, not quite good enough, but tacking both of those together means that I think that should be pretty solid at affecting the game in various positions. We've also got the Regal Imperiosaur, just absolutely gigantic for the mana cost. Slam dunk, we'd play that. And last but not least, we do have Captain Howler Sea Scourge, which is the most narrow of our rares. It needs to be in kind of a dedicated blue-red cycling deck, or if you've got a lot of cards that let you discard a card to draw a card, or just discard a card, period. It'll technically work off of those, but generally speaking, you want to be playing a bunch of cycling stuff for that, and obviously in blue-red specifically, that's where the cycling is. So I really want to take a look at green-black. That seems like a really excellent spot to be, but we will, as always, take a look at all of our colors and see if there's anything we're really missing that we could be playing. So start off with our multicolored and our colorless here, see what kind of filler we can shove into any deck. And what kind of colorless fixing we have. We have no colorless mana fixing, so very awkward for splashing. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 dual lands total, and they're kind of stacked up because 2 of them are black-red duals here. So we're probably not really able to splash unless we're playing a color that has a lot of good fixing in that color itself. For our multicolored uncommons, these tend to be some of the stronger cards. They can be pretty equivalent to a rare in power levels. So they could also push us into a specific color pair. Cards like Gastal Thrillseeker here, a 2 mana 2/3 that starts your engines and pings your opponent to immediately be at 2 speed. The turn you play it is very nice for the black-red speed deck, so that is interesting to keep in mind, as is the Embalmed Descendant, really good for a black-white aristocrats deck, a kind of deck that can flood the board with a bunch of creatures and then ping our opponent every time they die. So I think both of those are really, really good. And then the Cloudspire Sky Cycle, the Voyage Home, these are a little bit weaker, a little bit more narrow, but it does look like decent Orzhov and Rakdos here, which is interesting considering we have like double Bloodfell Caves. So maybe if our green is really bad, we can choose to pair our black with our white or our red, because we have 2 good black rares and 2 good green rares. So that gives us a nice little backup plan. Let's check by color now, and I like looking at them played out by mana cost like this. Just gives me a better general idea for what we're getting out of the color, and then I'll just pull out the really filler, really weak cards that aren't really adding anything to the deck. White is not doing much, I'll be completely honest. These cards are all tremendously filler to me. I mean, Glider might be okay. It's just a really cheap creature so that you can have like a 1-drop on board the turn that you start your engines. Like if you're playing a 2-mana start your engines card, if you already have a 1-drop on the board, that's not going to be summoning sick anymore. That can get that first ping in and get your speed rising quicker. So if we really have some important start your engines cards, like if we went black-white, we'd have that black-white uncommon that really wants to be at max speed. Then we could play the Glider in a pinch, but it's not like a generically good card like most of these other things. And I guess this isn't generically good either, but I imagine we'll probably have a few good mounts and vehicles. The removal is really the best thing going on in white. 3 copies of Ride's End seems pretty great. 2 mana to exile a tapped creature or vehicle is really efficient, and then 5 mana to exile anything is still going to be okay in a pinch. But we're really lacking on other good spells here, in my opinion, and this is one of the least flexible removal spells in terms of what it can kill. Only a creature with toughness 4 or greater. It's not even like the other ones where it's like power or toughness 4 or greater. Toughness only, which is why it has cycling. You can just cycle it away if there's nothing to target, but I'm still not a huge fan of that. Check out the blue now. I feel like Sealed is likely slow enough for the little Ether Siphon card draw engine to be interesting. Probably not Midnight Mangler, though. I mean, there is a high quantity of cards in blue here, but I don't feel like any of these are particularly good. There's nothing super spicy pulling us into the color. There's just, at best, good filler cards, maybe even great filler cards, like Skystreak Engineer and Nimblethopterist, but that's like the best we're getting. We don't really get above that that power level. I guess Refueler is also pretty good filler, or pretty great filler, but still, again, just like solid filler nonetheless. Our highest power cards here are about the power level of just like really good commons in the format. So certainly not giving us a ton of gas there, but it is giving us a ton of spells. For our black, we have the Speed Demon, we have the Demonic Junker. We also have a Siphon Fuel for some more filler removal. We have Mutant Surveyor. I have enjoyed this card. I like the Mana Sink ability. It's very good at pushing in damage and guaranteeing that you're raising your maximum speed, because it's always threatening to just eat their blocker without you losing a card, because you can always dump that mana in there. So pretty often gets your speed rising, as does the Gastel Raider. I mean, I guess this isn't very good at chipping in and hitting your opponent to raise your speed, but it's another card that starts your engines, and it's a very good 2-for-1 the turn you play it. If they have an instant or sorcery in hand, boom, make them discard 1, plus you have a 2-1 left on the board to trade off into something else, so I like that card. Engine Rat's been kind of impressive, actually. Just a Death Toucher with a good late-game mana sink. That can help get you to max speed if the game goes really long. Yeah, we've got 2 bomb rares here and some decent filler, like Siphon Fuel, Surveyor, the Rat. The Gastel Raider's actually very nice because it's a 2-for-1. I think black is my favorite color so far. Again, mostly just off the power of the rares, but it also has solid filler cards like our other colors. Or mainly like blue. Red here, what have we got? We have good removal with 2 Lightning Strikes and an Outpace Oblivion. Rakdos, start your engines, maximum speed build could be a thing, because we have that great Rakdos uncommon as well. This gives us some good top end here. Not quite like a rare bomb or anything, but just big flyer, big chunky creature that keeps cycling through our deck. I think red is a solid color here to pair with the black. The mana curve looks decent as well, considering we'll have a third 2-drop thanks to the multicolored card. Certainly not as good as your average draft mana curve is going to be, because you really want to focus up on making sure you have a great amount of 2-drops. But in sealed, where we have no control over what we open, I think this is about an average aggressive mana curve, is like, 4 cards at 2 or less mana. It's missing a little bit. Obviously, I would prefer to have more cheap creatures, but it could still be a thing. It could still get there. If the green, again, is not super playable. I like that better than pairing the black with the white. Last but not least, green does not look unplayable. I mean, I haven't read the cards yet, but there's a lot of cards here, which is a really, really good sign. So we have the Otark Mammoth at the top of the curve, a great way to stabilize, giving you 2 blockers off 1 card, one of which is massive. The Jaguar is kind of annoying, just a big vigilant threat. Hazard of the Dunes is pretty beefy for the cost. As is Ooze Patrol generally. We will be green-black, so we'll probably have some amount of self-mill out of the black as well as the green, because we've got, what is it called? Carrion Cruiser, right? I guess that's the only self-mill we have in black, so not a ton. But if our green has other ways to mill itself, Ooze Patrol should be pretty big for the cost. Imperiosaur is always pretty big for the cost. Pothole Mole gives us self-mill. Picks up a land. Refueler's fine. It can keep putting +++ counters on itself. If we have like a really powerful other exhaust ability, we can keep spamming that. But I don't think we will. Well, Greenbelt Guardian. Yeah, if we have Greenbelt Guardian and Elvish Refueler, then we can put 3 +++ counters on the Guardian every single turn. Pretty nasty. We've got a decent curve here because we're getting 3 2-drops out of the green alone, plus playing all of the black ones. There's a 1-drop that's playable as well. Yeah, I just like going for the Golgari good stuff here. Double check our colorless cards, but I do not think any of these are really strong enough to warrant the addition. Yeah, and then multicolored, we do not have a single green-black card. And again, the fixing is really bad. There's like 1 Veloheart bike in the entire sealed pool. That's almost all the fixing. Technically, there are a couple dual lands, but not in the perfect color pairs. So I only have room to cut 3 cards here since we're not playing any of the colorless stuff. If we're running really, really bad filler, then I can shove some of those artifacts in, but I'd prefer not to. They're all pretty weak. I mean, I think Intimidation Tactics is probably our most filler spell here as potential cuts. But after that, we're mainly just on mana curve concerns, where I think we just need to cut some 3 mana stuff here, regardless of it might be a little stronger than something at another mana value. We're just so clumped up there at 3. Yeah, this is just not a good Grim Javelineer deck. We don't care about pushing damage, trying to raise our max speed or anything like that, and we don't have a bunch of cheap creatures to give the buff to try to get through in attacks that wouldn't have happened regardless. So I think the Javelineers are cuts, which means I only get to cut 3 cards, and it's going to be some combination of these 4. The creature count is 17. We can go 15 to 17 creatures for your average pretty aggressive deck, but I think I'd like to go to the lower end here because we sort of have additional creatures with vehicles. It doesn't really work like that. Vehicles are a little more like equipment. They need creatures to function, so they're like the awkward sort of in-between. I mean, I definitely can't go below 15 because we're going to be running like 3 vehicles as well. But I think I can just go to 15 here. And then I guess we just cut the bike, and I might have to just cycle Intimidation Tactics very, very often. But it's probably not horrific, right? Because anytime it's in the opening hand, we just go Swamp, Intimidation Tactics, clear out their best artifacted creature in hand. If it's not in the opening hand, then it is quite mediocre, and we just have to spend, 3 mana to cycle it. But it's still better than, obviously, if it didn't have the cycling, so it can help make up for when we draw it later in the game, and it is going to be good when we have it in the opening hand. It'll be perfectly fine. So I will run that there. I'm definitely not playing like an 18th land over it or something, or any of the mediocre artifact cards, I think. So, yeah, we will wrap it up there. We'll call it a deck here, hop right into the gameplay, and see how it does. All right, here we are on the draw for game one. I'm a little concerned about this hand on the draw because it doesn't start till 3 mana, but I am still going to keep it here with both of our colors and a very powerful top-end spell to end things off. Our opponent starts with the Guide Light Optimizer. And a pass. Luckily no 3-drop unless they're holding for a counterspell here. Should actually play the Pothole Mole and then the Ooze Patrol. Mill myself a little bit to make the patrol bigger. Boom, there's the creature. Oh, that is tragic. Pothole Mole does not find a single land, so just a 3-mana 2/3 with very little upside. There was still a tiny bit of upside. It did give me one more +1/+1 counter on the Ooze Patrol, but that's really not much. Drop the Aetherdrift to draw a bunch of cards here. This is a 3/3 at least. This is probably just going to be a 4-mana 4/4 at this rate. It's not like playing Mutant Surveyor is going to end up with me getting any more creatures in my grave anytime soon. Because right now it doesn't look like we're even trading there. Okay, we got a 5/5 Ooze Patrol. That was pretty good luck. Hitting a creature and an artifact on the second mill. I gotta say, the Fallout Full Art basics are kind of fitting for this set. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. There's Spike Shell Harrier. They're gonna let me mill some more. Get an even bigger Ooze Patrol. Sure. They do get a nice big tempo swing from that. Boom, 6/6 Ooze Patrol. This is crew 3, so realistically they just crew this, fly that over. I'm at most stopping 2 damage with Pothole Mole. If they spend removal on Ooze Patrol and then attack with the Spike Shell Harrier and the Optimizer, can't really just chump Harrier anyway. Alright, yeah, that's awkward. So we missed out on stopping 2 points of damage with the Mole here. Oh, never mind, they used the Mole for mana. So yeah, we would have just had to take all 7. Unless, I mean, this is enough damage. We might have been able to just chump block Harrier here, but that's really not a good spot to be regardless. Alright, I think we're getting close to dead here. Might have been a little too slow of a hand for this game. I mean, the flying damage is going to get us very, very soon. That is lethal, right? Because now I only have 2 blockers up and that can ping me in the face for an additional 2. I'm pretty sure that's lethal. So they can crew Hole Drifter with the 2/2/2s, attack with the other 2. Technically not lethal at that point, but I'm forced into horrible blocks to not die. All right, pretty self-explanatory game there. Opponent just had the faster hand, and so we get stomped. Simple as that. We are heading into game 2 now. All right, here's basically the same hand, but we're on the play this time. We do nothing till turn 3. We have a big 7-drop finisher. It's quite a slow hand, but just being on the play instead of being on the draw speeds it up quite a bit. I think I'll start Velocipede here. That's going to allow the Pothole Mole to get a +1/+1 counter the turn we play it, making it big enough to crew the Velocipede and immediately get that attack in. Sure. Drawing removal is a perfectly fine use. of the Velopede, especially when we draw the Rise from the Wreck to pick it up. So now I will be able to pick up creature in a vehicle and a creature with no abilities. Let's go. I can pick up 3 cards with the Rise from the Wreck. We did the thing. All right, our opponent on a much slower start this game, and we top deck Speed Demons, so let's draw 2, lose 2 here, shall we? One of the things that you really need to keep track of early on in this format, if you're used to playing a lot of other formats and trying to conceal as much information as possible from your opponent, you're going to be used to playing everything main phase 2 all the time. In this format, there are, with the max speed mechanic, quite a few instances where you need to slam down your creature main phase 1. That was not one of those instances, but they're tapped out, so I don't care. But when you have a card to start your engines, like the Speed Demon, if I had played this main phase 2, I would have drawn 0 cards that turn, so really, really important. It's the kind of mistake that's pretty easy to correct in the future. Like, you're only going to make that mistake once, but if you haven't played the format at all yet, and you're just now seeing this video, maybe that little spiel gets you to make the mistake 0 times. Cool. I mean, I could absolutely just like Rise from the Wreck and start slamming creatures down, but we're in such a commanding lead here, we can really play it whatever way we want. I have a Mount in the grave, by the way, so this picks up 4 cards now. We did the full thing off of this, which is absolutely absurd. It's a Lifecraft engine, which, like most vehicles, doesn't do anything by itself. It will give their other creatures of whatever type they choose +1/+1, as well as all of their other vehicles. Their other vehicles are now also creatures of the chosen type. Canyon Vaulter. So that's the creature type pilot? Yeah. Okay, so they're going to have a 4/4 on blocks even if I blow this up, which means we're only getting in with Greenbelt Guardian this turn. Either way, so I think I just attack with Greenbelt Guardian. I don't feel the need to Demonic Junker here, so 1 creature card, boom. 1 mount card, boom. 1 vehicle card, boom. 1 creature with no abilities, boom. All 4. It would be painful to play Speed Demon and shoot myself for 4, but I'd also draw a million cards, and I'm super greedy, so I feel like that's fine. If there's a way to lose this game, it probably involves shooting ourselves in the face for 4 damage a turn. Okay, they're over it. That is 1-1 heading into game number 3. All right, this is a curve out hand. I do need to hit another forest to actually drop the Imperiosaur turn 3, but it's certainly not worth a mulligan just because of that minor issue. And we top decked a different 3-drop anyway, so we get to curve out even if I don't find the Imperiosaur forest. If I do find it, I'm going to slam the 5/4 instead of the 2/1, but the curve is strong either way. We did find that forest. Let's offer the trade for the Catalyzer here, because we have so much going on in the hand. I really don't mind that I'm losing the Guardian that I could be sinking more mana in to make bigger. That also gets the Ooze Patrol some more fuel in the graveyard. Burnout Bastronaut. That card is super strong on turn 1. My apologies, I just realized my mic was up a little bit high. turn that down to the normal amount I usually have it on. This is much less concerning this late in the game, but it's still a problem. Still a problem. I think we're supposed to slam down a 4-drop here, because any 5th land lets us play both of these in one turn, which is quite efficient. Okay, bounce spell, draw a card, poke for 1. They're at 2 speed now. So our artifact enchantment removal here, not really what we want to see. It's the removal for that. They're going to be at speed 3. They're pretty much locked in for max speed at this point, unless I top deck the land here to play 2 blockers this turn. Alright, now they can guarantee max speed. Well, a 1-drop's good here, because then I can play the Raider and the 1-drop. Still rough to miss that pretty pivotal 5th land. Let's see what they got left. They're out of instants and sorceries. That's awkward. Raider is better the earlier that we played it, but they had so many cards in hand most of the time, I was pretty confident that we'd be able to get something with that later here. Unfortunately, that was not the case. They got to, like, double spell, plus play a land on that last turn. Dump 3 cards out of their hand super fast. I've got no removal for that Merfolk here, so they can draw a ton of cards off of that. Get a fresh new hand. I do have the Broken Wings for the Memory Guardian, which is nice. We get to play that and the Gibberic Omnivore here. Which means I get to attack with the Imperiosaur freely. I highly doubt they're trying to kill this at all. But if they do, it plays super well for us, and they do. I am very happy with that outcome, because now we've gotten rid of their gigantic card draw spell, and we still have our Imperiosaur. So if they get to max speed, which they're only 1 away from, they can start looting with this. I guess rummaging is the term for discarding first and then drawing. But just cycling away all of your top deck lands in the late game. There's the Ether Jacket, 2/1 flying Vigilance. That will also be a problem and lock them in for max speed coming up. But the board, the average power toughness over there is pretty small. I'm at 1 speed. I should probably just trade the Gastel Raider off pretty freely right now. Like, it's gotta be a while till we make that a 3/3 menace. So just trading into the Ether Jacket seems fine. If I play the Velocipede instead of Ooze Patrol right now, I am guaranteeing my opponent can get max speed off Bastronaut. So I guess I'll play the Ooze Patrol first. We lose 1... No, we actually lose 3 counters this way, since that is mana value 4 or greater. But it's already plenty big. Opponent at 12, it's already a 6/6 here. Off of a solid mill. There's the Hole Drifter, draw a couple cards. It's accrue 3, so it doesn't matter too much as an attacker or blocker right now. And then discard 1, draw 2. Lots of card draw in their deck, but right now they really need to find something that affects the board because we have so many creatures out here, and they're already down to 12. About to take a massive swing next turn. And they're just going to scoop them up. That is 2 and 1 now. So far, so good here. Decent little positive win rate. We'll see if we can keep that up as we head into game 4. All right, here we are now on the draw for game 4. We've got a turn 1 Molt Tender to start shoving stuff into our graveyard. And more importantly, we have the curve out here. Molt Tender, Omnivore, and Imperiosaur, just to play some beefy creatures each turn. I mean, I wouldn't call a 1/1 beefy, but it has good abilities. 2 mana 3/2 into 3 mana 5/4 should still be pretty threatening. There's the 2 mana 2/2 from our opponents. That's just going to trade right off right quick. But trading our 2 mana cards into each other is pretty fair. They have started their engines with an Omnicat Raceway. I will be interested in seeing as the format progresses if just getting your engines started early by playing a land is worth the fact that these tap for colorless. Okay, Sky Serpent Seeker is a very good card. That's a draw 2 later in the game. It is just ramping for 2 lands, but just the draw 2 lands put them right into play. It's a very good exhaust ability. Well, we've milled the Demonic Junker, which obviously looks bad, but I do have 1 Graveyard Recursion spell in the deck. Alright, we trade the 2-drops. That's the 4th mana for Sky Serpent Seeker, so even if they don't have a good play in hand, they can just exhaust that. That plays super well. I don't think they're exhausting it, because if they were going to, they could have done that on the attack for an extra damage or 2. Yeah, an extra 1 damage. I milled the Ooze Patrol too. The RNG on these mills is real awkward right now, but what can you do? It's probably still worth it to mill. And the 2 reasons to keep milling ourselves in this deck are the Ooze that I already milled and the Rise from the Wreck, which I haven't milled yet. I've got a Carrion Cruiser as well. Yes, I still have 2 more cards I could draw into that benefit off of having more and more cards in grave. We do have a little bit of flood over here, which is getting concerning. We have 7 lands and a Mana Dork. But now I've got a good activated ability if they don't blow up this Vanguard. It allows me to keep looking at the top 3, putting some permanents into my hand. So finds creatures, vehicles, all that good stuff. Lands if I needed them, but by the time you have 5 mana to start activating Beast Rider Vanguard, I think you're generally not in the market for more lands. Oof. Alright, our opponent draws 2 cards every other turn, and they have an indestructible attacker and blocker every turn other than that. Okay. I don't think our deck really has answers to indestructible. I've got the -6/-6. If we draw into that really quickly, we could deal with this. But it has already guaranteed our opponent a 3-for-1. Okay, well, never mind. You would need the -6/-6 the turn that gets cast. Because I forgot it also gets the counters as it's going over things. I mean, I think we genuinely just don't have an out to that at this point. I'm reading the whole deck list. There's no exile removal in here. It's just the -X/-X. This destroy removal spell as well, it's already gone. Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to try to go wide around that. I have 3 creatures on board, and they can just keep crewing a vehicle with it on the turns that it can't attack or block. Getting pretty low on life for a speed demon. It's a 5/5 flying trample. I think it's the best I can do, and the best I can do is very, very dangerous because our opponent's attacking with an 8/8 trample indestructible next turn. I have to chump attack with somebody if I want to guarantee that I'm raising my speed, but just drawing 1 extra card each turn is already solid off speed demons, so I'm not really worried about raising my speed here. If they want to lose a 4/3 to my Death Toucher, I'm pretty happy with that exchange. It is tragic that triggers in the end step rather than like main phase 2, because then I could play this sorcery speed spell I drew into. And I think I'm not going to be able to block here, really. Like, all I can do is chump, and because of the trample, the chumps are kind of tiny. We've got removal for the speed demon anyway, which, I mean, makes sense. They've drawn 4 extra cards. I guess they only drew 2 off of this. So they drew 2 cards and 2 lands this game. Yeah, take 10. I'm completely losing this creature just to stop 2 damage, or completely losing this just to stop 1. Eight mana's Imperiosaur plus Jaguar. Sab cannot attack next turn, luckily. So we go down to 2. Sure. I'm good there. Kind of just got soloed by an Amonkhet Frog God, which is divine justice for our last deck, where we did that to several people. 2-2 it is, heading into game 5. Alright, here we are for game number 5. We've got a turn 2 Vanguard into turn 3 Velocipede off of any land draw. Never mind. I mean, they probably exile Speed Demon, because it's by far the most threatening card in my hand, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do exile Velocipede, just because I am much farther away from the Speed Demon than the Velocipede. I've got to hit the right lands to get to that one. So they do get rid of the Velocipede. Opponent takes a gamble on us getting unlucky, which allows us to gamble on getting lucky. See how it works out. 0 lands for the first 2 draws is really, really bad. We did need, like, any land to make this hand decent, but the fact that we don't specifically need a swamp to still be in a decent spot made it kind of a keep for me. Literally any land gives us the turn 3 mythic vehicle, but we draw no lands all game so far. It's 0 for 3, which is really not what we wanted to see. There it is. Unfortunately, it is another forest. But we can now play the Elvish Refueler. Lifecraft Engine's about to go real hard with these Scurry Foots. Maybe I should even just attack with the 2-2 at that point, rather than holding it up. I guess it just trades into Carrion Cruiser now. But trading into a Scurryfoot before it gets to exhaust and make the elephant is actually a pretty good deal. Sure, I'll trade another cruiser here. In a really rough position where I just need to try to prolong the game as long as possible, get as many extra draw steps as possible towards hitting the lands that we need. And there is one there. So now I can Broken Wings the Lifecraft Engine whenever I need to. Which is fully revealed, so they 100% know that I can do that, but it is still nice to hold it up at instant speed instead of just playing it right now. Through the Lifecraft Engine. Send in a swing. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and blow that up. Back on track. Reanimate a 9/7 that got milled at some point. Sure. It's obviously pretty bad. Got the Siphon Fuel block here. Adapt the Refueler if that doesn't work out. I guess if they've got a removal spell in hand, that's really bad for me, because then I can't really do either play. But my other option is to play a Speed Demon on a board where it's really bad, because I would play Speed Demon and then just trump a 9/7, I guess. And if I played Speed Demon just gets Siphon Fueled. Oh, and I couldn't play Speed Demon. I don't have double black. Alright, never mind. I literally had no choice. What am I talking about? We played the only legal play. I guess I technically could have cast a Rise from the Wreck picking up one creature, but that would have also been very bad. Alright, well, the mana really got us on this one. Got the chump block this turn, so I'm not quite dead. I take 1, 2, 3, 4. Top deck intimidation tactics. Well, goodbye Speed Demon Hopes and Dreams. Oh, nope, we still have Speed Demon Hopes and Dreams. It's goodbye Mammoth Hopes and Dreams. Now the Scurryfoot Slaughter comes. Yeah. Bad mana was bad, and 2 and 3 it is. Kind of a rough record here. I think the deck was a little bit better than that, but it was certainly a lot weaker than our first deck. Our first deck had like 6 bombs, which was insane. This one just like a little less. And I wouldn't really call these bombs. They're just like good rares. Like Demonic Junker, we didn't really have enough artifacts to give this enough affinity to make it really, really good. I actually didn't even get to cast it once, so this was probably our most awkward card. But we still had the Speed Demon putting in a lot of work for us. The Imperiosaur just being big in general was also pretty good. And then a Velocipede honestly never really did anything, but it kind of just kept getting blown up or exiled from our hand. So I'm not sure how much of that is this card's fault. It just kept getting blown up, which happens. But Imperiosaur was great. Speed Demon was great. Biggest flaw in the deck is probably the lack of removal. Not that we could do a lot about that. Any game where the removal really would have helped, we would have needed it pretty early. And the only on-color removal spell we didn't play was the 6-mana removal spell, which I think we still just lose all of those games, right? That last game we definitely lose. We would not have had enough mana to even use this to destroy the 9/7. And the game before last game, our second loss, we also still would have lost because we needed to blow up an indestructible card. So we really just didn't have any outs to those last two games. Like maybe mulliganing again in that last game could play better, but I thought it was reasonable. It was a 2-lander. We were on the draw. It just did not work out for us. So yeah, again, this is sealed. So the biggest flaws in our deck aren't really things we can control. Like I can't just magically put more removal in this deck. In draft, obviously, we could argue that, oh, I should have really drafted removal more heavily, but it's not really a thing here in sealed. Like, I guess we could have splashed for lightning strikes. Maybe that's the best deck in the sealed pool, is like playing some Bloodfell Caves, playing the where's that thing? Playing the Velo Heart Bike. That's three red sources right there. So we'd like play this and then cut, I think, another swamp for like one mountain as well. This might have been worth it because of how low we were on removal, but again, would not have changed the outcome of those last two games. The Lightning Strike not nearly big enough to kill a 9/7, and the Velo Heart Bike doesn't really change the outcome at all either. And obviously Lightning Strike not killing the indestructible creature. Yeah, is what it is. I think it was the strongest color pair. Arguably a better build involves a little more removal, running the Lightning Strikes, because that's the biggest flaw in the deck, but still would have lost at least those last two games. I don't really remember the first loss at this point. That is sealed for you. That is where the cards fall today. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it and you're interested in seeing some more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.